I want to talk about small business. What is the government doing to help small business owners survive this recession? They have to make payroll. They want to grow. And I want to know why there's a disconnect. Why does Wall Street get the breaks and Main Street doesn't? Congressman Barney Frank and former presidential candidate Ralph Nader with us for round two of this discussion tonight. Congressman Frank, why is it that it's taken the Obama administration so long, or maybe it hasn't, to get the TARP money to small businesses and get lending going to small businesses? Why was it the money went so quick to Wall Street, but yet it's been so slow to come to the small communities and community banks?
I've been frustrated by that. Of course, it went out, remember, under the Bush administration. In fairness to the Obama administration, most of the money that went out, the first $350 billion under the Bush administration. We tried to impose compensation restrictions and other requirements, and we couldn't get the Bush administration to enforce them. The Obama administration has been better. The other thing I would say, though, in our legislation, by the way, we have differentiated. Mr. Nader said the biggest banks were cheering. No, the biggest banks are very angry. We've worked with the community banks. I'm very proud of that. We've worked with the Independent Community Bankers Association. We've worked with the credit unions. What we did in the consumer bill, frankly, was to treat the smaller banks, the community banks, and the credit unions differently than the larger banks.
Mr. Nader, are they doing enough? For time constraints, Mr. Nader, are they doing enough?
Well, one thing to do is to crack down with stronger antitrust enforcement budgets and break up the big corporations who are too big to fail and then have to be bailed out by the taxpayer, which includes small business taxpayers. Barney mentioned something about what's politically possible. That's why I beseech you, Barney, to revisit Chuck Schumer's proposal in 1985 to shift some power to investors and consumers not funded by taxpayer, voluntarily joined by consumers and investors, so they can develop a counterbalance and give the Democrats some backbone to come up against, quote, the political realities. September 17th, 1985 is a statement by then Congressman Chuck Schumer. And there's got to be a civil right of action. I don't know why you oppose that.
I don't oppose it.
It gives an opening to the courts.
Well, let me correct it.
By the way, not all this is academic. If you're not going to regulate derivatives tough without any loopholes, right, etc., you have to split commercial banking from investment banking.
All right,
Do you agree with that?
All right, go ahead, Barney.
Yes, you've got this stream of accusations. When one is disproven, Mr. Nader moves to another. He's been in love with this notion of a consumer association. I think he thinks that'll somehow bring him back to power. It's not been on the agenda of any other consumer groups. As to the private right of action, first of all, we've empowered the state attorneys general and the state bank regulators over the objection of the banks, and they, frankly, are very powerful. Secondly, when the Republicans tried to move to strike private rights of action from the bill, because many of the laws that we are dealing with here and giving the consumer agency the power to enforce them have private rights of action, and we beat back that amendment. Mr. Nader keeps bringing up new and inaccurate accusations.
Mr.
And
Nader,
I do want to go back to our small business. Yeah. We have split off, frankly, the smaller community banks. That's relevant to your question. We've pushed for them to get money, and we'll continue to work with the community banks as opposed to the big banks.
Do you support Elizabeth Warren to head the new Consumer Financial Regulatory Agency?
Do you, Barney? Congressman Frank?
I think she'd be a great appointment. I've worked very closely with her. I'm very impressed with her knowledge and her political sophistication.
Mr. Nader, you didn't answer the question. Is the Obama administration doing enough to spur small business and job creation in this country?
Well, they're talking a good game. I hope they can implement it up against the Republicans in Congress. But the important thing is, I keep saying, if you don't split commercial banking from investment banking, as Paul Volcker and others have been repeatedly stating, including the head of the Bank of England, if you don't do that, everything's academic. We're going to have another round of speculative collapse and bailout. This book, Barney, she sent this to you. I will send this to you. She's a former managing director of
we have a rational conversation.
Congressman Franks, will we have another collapse?
Not if we get all our legislation through.
Okay.
And by
Gentlemen,
the way,
I got to run. I'm up against the clock. I appreciate your time tonight. Congressman Barney Frank and consumer advocate and former presidential candidate Ralph Nader here on the Ed Show. Thanks so much.